But we're all targets. We're all going to be targets eventually. Everybody in this room, I'm sure we have informants in here. Okay. I'm not the only victim. There's thousands of Americans out there. By the way, I've been shot with a laser beam twice in my back. People came from all walks of life, from all parts of the country, and told me about the satanic cult movement in this country. It is big, it is huge, it is dangerous, very dangerous. They consider me armed and dangerous. Okay, well, I am armed and dangerous with knowledge, right?
Hi family, greetings, and this is a really special video because I am featuring a gentleman, and I generally don't trust the three-letter organization types, but this man, Ted Gunderson, is the ex-FBI chief who actually lost his life as a result of whistleblowing and was himself, in fact, a targeted individual. So I wanted to give you some background on him and also what to watch for in this video and a caveat of sorts, because what Ted Gunderson was most known for was exposing the occult ties between government agencies all the way from the lowest levels all the way to the top. And he is quick to point out in this video that he is not implying that all people in these agencies are nefarious, but has come to the exact same conclusions that we have talked about on this channel. I counted no less than 20, and I listed them all for you in this video. 20 tactics that he identifies as an extension of Cointelpro. And I have covered that on this channel before, comparing mkultra, Zerzetzung, and Cointelpro, and this hybrid program of what has commonly been termed and has come to be known as gangstalking. And so I want to make a caveat because, as we have talked about many times in our live streams and on my videos, although the government and agencies and organizations can be very complicit in what's happening, it is their ties to these darker forces and the influence of these darker forces upon the people within these organizations that makes it kind of next level. It does not contradict to say that this is spiritual warfare, because in essence, everything is spiritual. And I love the quote by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, I believe, if I'm saying that properly, that says, we are not humans having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So when you boil everything down, everything is spiritual. And these forces move through the people and the organizations and the agencies and the governments that we are talking about. So I tend to focus on the very top, the very pinnacle of that pyramid, because you have to stop and think. If this has to do with the occult, if this has to do with spiritual ritualistic abuse, which he was known for studying those cases, then the people that they serve are the enemy himself. And so it's just a matter of how far you zoom out on these things, whether you're looking at street level gang stalkers, whether you're looking at people that are placed within organizations or who are already in organizations that have been influenced by darker forces, whether it be the church, whether it be Hollywood, whether it be the government, whether it be law enforcement. All of these things are possible when you understand the infiltration of not just the occult, but also the enemy himself into these agencies and into these organizations. This interview that he gave, and it was shocking to me, it says it's dated November 23rd of 2010. And he seems to have an audience of 15 to 20 people. And it's about a 2.5-hour talk. And so I've kind of broken it up. So in places I've cut out and merged things. He does a deep dive into his cases that involved SRA, which is spiritual ritualistic abuse, And so he goes into those cases. And so I've tried in this video to focus on the 20 tactics that he lays out that are happening in his own life, and that we have talked about every single one of these at some point on this channel. We have looked at the tactics from these aspects, and I was stunned to find this 15-year-old video. He calls it codename Quantico. That never caught, I guess, and it's become this stigmatized term: gang stalking, organized stalking, group stalking, community harassment, workplace mobbing, family betrayal, you name it. It's had a name for it. And so gang stalking seems to be the most common term. But as I had pointed out in a previous video, it does appear to be a hybrid between these various government programs. But the one-on-one comparison we can draw is from Scripture and the biblical account of targeting. So it really does get complicated. There are a lot of facets, and this is just one of them. This is the complicity and what he is calling out and what he has experienced. And I think it's helpful also to realize that even with his connections, which you figure as the ex-FBI chief, private investigator, and U.S. citizen, he had certain people, he had access to certain people, he had access to certain resources, although he had been ostracized from the intelligence community. And as we know, a smear campaign was, he calls it a disinformation campaign. Today we call it a smear campaign. But although he was ostracized from those communities, he still had ties to people throughout his long history. At the time of the making of this particular speech that he gave and the filming of it, I believe he was 82 years old. And so I just want to thank Mr. Gunderson. He says to call him Ted. He says he wants his work out there so that people can be educated. And he is also quick to point out that there are thousands of us and that we are all likely targets. It is those of us who endure and survive and are able to succeed through our faith. But I won't get to that today. I'm going to give you Ted now. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And I just want to thank Ted again for his work. He will be remembered. And blessings to you all. I love you. There's a lot more to come. Members only content will be on the GATE program, my inside story of that. Inside the survivor economy, and I have put insurances in place in the event that something happens. I have kept my personal story close to my vest for a very long time, and anyone who has gone through this will be able to understand that it comes at great personal risk, and I don't have the resources and the means and all of the things that would essentially protect me. So I am relying solely on God for this and his direction as to when to speak and to whom. So those will likely be members only. So hit the like button, subscribe, and please share this video because Ted wanted it shared. I would like to have it shared so that people have a better understanding. They're not crazy. One thing he did leave out, and I think it's because he doesn't have a pet. He covered literally every single tactic with the exception of the harm of pets. And I think it's because he didn't have one. So with that, I give you Ted. I'll shut up now. And I love you all. Have a blessed day.
I'm not an anti-government person. I'm an anti-corruptionist. I love my country. And I will continue, as long as I'm alive, to continue to expose this evil element that's permeated throughout our society. I like football, baseball. I like to have a beer once in a while. I'm as normal as any of the rest of you out here, okay? And I'm not anti-government. Again, I'm anti-corruptionist. I want to make it very clear. There's a lot of good people in the FBI and the CIA. However, it's the people at the top, okay, that I have a problem with. But when our forefathers established the three branches of the government, executive, legislative, and judicial branch, they had no idea that down the road, years later, there would be a fourth branch. And I call the fourth branch the covert, rogue, government, criminal enterprise. these people, this element of our society, is involved in the drug. And since I got out of the Bureau, I have done everything I can to expose it. I'm exposing it today. Now, one of the programs by the government, and I'm going to go into detail as to how the government operates, how this rogue element operates in the country. The techniques that's used is called Cointelpro. Cointelpro is short for Counterintelligence Program. I know all about Cointelpro. I was one of the individuals in the FBI who actively administered it against the Black Panthers. It's very effective. But here I'm explaining the Cointelpro program, how it works, how they worked it against me. They listed the 40 false patriot anti-government leaders. They also listed the most dangerous patriots in America recently. I'm proud to announce that I made both lists. They also described me as a leading conspiracy monger. Anybody know what a monger looks like? You're looking at him, I guess. Okay. The Anti-Defamation League, another organization, as far as I'm concerned, that's a spokesperson for this rogue, covert government criminal enterprise. They describe me as an extremist speaker, and they say that I pose as a threat to the country. Do I look like I'm a threat to anybody? No, of course not. Hero. Beg your pardon? A hero. Okay. They claim I will likely become a target of U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder. Now, I don't know what that means, but if I'm going to be on a list or a target of the Department of Justice, so be it. So I will still continue to do what I'm doing. I'd like to emphasize that I'm not an anti-government monger, conspiracy theorist, and I will continue, as long as I'm alive, to continue to expose this evil element that's permeated throughout our society. I like football, baseball. I like to have a beer once in a while. I'm as normal as any of the rest of you out here, okay? And I'm not anti-government. Again, I'm anti-corruptionist. Because I want people to take my work and get it out and educate. So one of the programs that the rogue government uses, in addition to organizations like Southern Poverty Law and Anti-Defamation League, to their advantage, to try to discredit and destroy those of us who are trying to protect and save our country, is called a disinformation program. And if you will look on the internet, you will see where I am one of the heroes of the bad guys, in that I have been accused of, as I said earlier, practicing satanic ceremonies in the federal building. That's why I was kicked out of the FBI. Another topic that's on the internet is that I married Anton LaVey's widow. Anton LaVey was one of the heads of the Church of Satan. That's just one of the things that's on the internet. I've mentioned some other things. But I've had so many people planted on me, government operatives. I feel like I'm the Garden of Eden, to be honest with you. That's right. For example, a fellow named Stu Webb. This is all part of their master plan to discredit me, so people like you won't listen to me. So a fellow named Stu Webb came to me. I ran for political office back in the 90s, and I lived in Las Vegas at that time. I need a place to stay for 4 days. Well, I take patriots in all the time, so I'd come on over and stay in my place. He stayed for 7 months. I gave him, and I fed him. I've even bought him a suit. I let him use my car, gasoline, the whole thing. I got to quit doing that, folks, because it gets me in trouble every time. But anyway, I finally told Stu, I said, I got my granddaughter coming to stay with me. You're going to have to get out of that third bedroom. I had an elderly lady living in the second bedroom who was from Ireland and a cripple, and I'd run into her in my travels, and I took her in too, and she ended up being an invalid. But anyway, Stu Webb left when I was out of town, stole 35 copies of Thanks for the Memories, which was Bryce Taylor's book. You remember that book? Bryce Taylor was a presidential model. And last time I checked the internet, the Thanks for the Memory was selling on the internet for like $110. He stole 35 copies that I had. He stole my research, 8 or 10 boxes of my research. And it goes on and on and on. But Stu Webb when he walked out the door, when the next time I saw him, he said, "I'm going to destroy you and the Patriot community." And this is he's the one that says I was kicked out of the FBI for practicing satanic ceremony in the federal building. So much for Stu Webb. He's been discredited, so forget about him. Jim Kloberg, another person who was planted on me. I ran for a political office in Las Vegas in '96. And Kloberg was my campaign manager. And when the campaign was over, I was selling my DVDs and books and everything else to try to finance the campaign. Very expensive, by the way. Anyway, this lady wrote me a letter, and she said, "I never received my DVD. Where is it?" And I said, "Well, send me a copy of your check and send me the flyer." And I found out that Kloberg made up his own flyer with another name, Gunderson for president or some name like that, had his own bank account, and the money was coming into his own post office box, okay, and he was putting the money in his pocket. Clear-cut election violation of the federal laws. And I immediately reported it to the U.S. Attorney and the FBI in Las Vegas. Nothing ever happened. I found out later that Kloberg was an FBI informant who'd been planted on me. Now the latest, again, now we're talking about disinformation specialists. The latest incident was really costly. A woman named Virginia McCullough, and she's from up here in Northern California, and she's been bashing me for years, and she finally made a big mistake. In 2005, I had to leave Las Vegas and go to Nebraska because I was being poisoned. I was sitting in my office, actually I had an office in my home, a condo, and I realized I wasn't thinking straight, and I was foggy, and I couldn't remember some things, and I'm saying there's something wrong with me. I went down and took a test, and I found out I had arsenic and cyanide in me. And as a result of that, by the way, I have high blood pressure, and I'll be on high blood pressure medicine the rest of my life. But I said to my associate, Clarence Malcolm, who's my webmaster now, my first webmaster was murdered, the second one was set up and framed on child molestation charges. Chris Jones didn't do it. So I said to Malcolm, by the way, does anybody want to volunteer to be my fourth webmaster? Here you go. See me after okay? So I said to Malcolm, we got to get out of here. So within 2 weeks, I called John DeCamp. I'm sure you folks know the name John DeCamp. He's a great man, Lincoln, Nebraska attorney, and he and I worked on the Franklin cover-up case together. I called John DeCamp, and I said, "John, I got a problem. I got to get out of here." And he said, "Well, come on back to my hometown, Claytonia, Nebraska. I'll guarantee there's not a person in this room that's ever heard of Claytonia, Nebraska. It's 196 people. It's about 5 blocks long and 3 blocks wide, and 196 people. They have a post office, a bar, and a bank, and that's it. That's their business section." So John said, "Come on back. I got a house I'll rent to you." So Clarence and I and his wife and his 8-year-old daughter, stepdaughter at that time, moved from Las Vegas to Claytonia, Nebraska. And John was quite surprised. He said, "Come on back." And 2 weeks later, I got a van in front of his house with furniture. I said, "Where do I go, John?" And he made fun of that because he didn't know if I was going to come back or not. But John rented me one of his houses. Now, I'm going to tell you how much I rented it for. It's 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1/3 of an acre land, $550 a month. Doesn't sound like LA, does it? No. So anyway, so there I am in Claytonia, Nebraska. And Malcolm and I, and his wife, and Linda and the daughter, stepdaughter, are, pumping out the DVDs, furnishing information when we can, educating people when we can, and so forth. All of a sudden, knock, knock, knock. Open the door, here's the police officer. We have received information. You are holding a child hostage here. We want to see the child. And I said, and Malcolm said, do you have documents, court documents, papers? No, out the door. And it was a female police officer. She slammed the door. She was really upset about that because we challenged her. So Malcolm says, we got to get out of here. So we moved 20 miles down the road overnight, registered the house in Beatrice, which is where we moved to, in his wife's maiden name, and about a week later, knock, knock, knock. And here is another police officer, only this time, Beatrice police officer. We have information that you are holding a child hostage here. We want to see the child. Court documents? No, out the door, okay? So I immediately go down and talk to the district attorney. Randy Rittenauer is his name. And I say, I'm telling Randy, what's this all about? He says, well, I'm receiving emails from some woman in California about this. I said, well, how would she know what we have going here in Claytonia, Nebraska? Well, we got to check it out. I said, no. I said, the woman's is Virginia McCullough. Isn't that right? And he didn't say yes, he didn't say no. He just went like this and nodded his head up and down. So as a result of that, Malcolm left Beatrice overnight and goes to Texas. And then from Texas, he ended up having surveillances on him like we've all had, those of us in the limelight, so to speak. And I sent him and the daughter and his wife to Panama to get him out of harm's way. And he's been down there. Now, what that did to me financially, is mind-boggling. I have not been able to get my DVDs out for almost a year, because this happened a year ago now, actually. And so I've got a bunch of back orders I'm in the process of putting together now. Malcolm, in the meantime, has moved back to the States. He's living in Pennsylvania, and we're going to be able to crank it out. But that's Virginia McCullough. Okay, another government operative. So no sooner did I neutralize Virginia McCullough, because I went public with this. It's on my website about Virginia McCullough. Then up pops Dr. Leonard Horowitz. Does anybody know that name? And I'm shocked, because Leonard Horowitz is telling me that in this 12-page document, I have a copy of it here, he's telling me that Ted Gunderson and others are serving Michael Aquino, former head of the Temple of Satan, the Church of Satan, and now the head of the Temple of Set, that I'm serving him? What does that mean? And also goes on and talks about me being involved in these various government activities, and I'm a CIA operative, and I'm also an FBI operative. These are the tactics that they use. They criticize the government. Some of the people that they pull out of the woodwork in order that they will be accepted in patriot circles. And then these people criticize people like me. They think they can be accepted, and it discredits me. Now, is this Cointelpro program and this disinformation program on the internet, has it affected my life? You bet it has. Because I'm not being invited to these big conferences anymore where I could give a lecture in front of 300, 400, 500 people. This is exactly what the rogue, covert, criminal government enterprise wants. That's why they do it. So what's the reward for me? Now I'm going to tell you what's happened to me in the last 30 years. And I'm not telling you this because I'm looking for pity or I'm looking for sympathy or anything. These are facts, okay? Now, Will Rogers said, what do you say, if it's true, what do you say? Anybody remember what he said?
He never met a man who didn't lie.
Huh?
No, that's something else. I'm sorry.
Anyway, I forget what Will Rogers said. I'll tell you what happened in the next lecture. Anyway, what's happened to me, I've had 3 contracts on my life, okay? I've had 2 other probable contracts, and I will give you just a little detail about the contracts that were put on me so that you will understand it's not just talk right off the top of my head. I might mention that in 2 of these instances, through divine intervention, I did not go home. I lived in 500 South Kelton in Westwood. This was in the 1980s, or mid-1980s. And I had a door, I lived in a triplex, and my door opened up onto the street. The landlady who lived behind me on the 2nd floor came home one morning, 1:30 in the morning, and here's 2 guys sitting across from my front door in a car. And one of them gets out and walks over to her, do you know where Ted Gunderson lives? And I told her, if anybody ever asks about me, you don't know me. And of course she said no, she didn't know. Well, she told me that the next day. And I made some phone calls, and I learned that there was a contract on me. And fortunately, I do have some good sources, and it's kept me alive. But what it really has kept me alive is on that particular night, I didn't go home. I stayed at a friend's house at the last minute. So I say it's through divine intervention that I didn't go home on that particular night. So I lived in a hotel room that whole week with a gun under my pillow, and I didn't move. I paid cash for the room. That was before you had to furnish identification. And it's kind of interesting because every time somebody walked down the hall in the middle of the night, I would wake up. But the point of this story is divine intervention. I didn't go home that night. A friend of mine said, stay with me this night and, we'll go from there. And so anyway, I ended up I had some friends drive me to Dallas. I remember I slept in the back of the car, in the back seat of the car, for like 21 hours. That's how long it took to drive to Dallas, because I hadn't had any sleep in a week. And then while I was over there, I'm saying to myself, I got to get rid of this other head. This is all New World Order stuff. This is all Illuminati. Okay, they put hits out on people all the time. Don't bat an eye. Just one. So on another occasion, 1986, I said to myself, I've had enough cops and robbers in my life. I'm getting out, and I'm going to go in business for myself. Divine intervention, again. The good Lord wasn't going to let me get out of this work that I'm doing. And I invested every dime I had, and I lost it all. And so I had to go back in to private investigation work. So this fellow, I was living with my business partner and his wife and kid. My business partner went overseas, went to Argentina, I think it was. And he was gone for a while. And then my daughter had a road trip, and I house sat for her. And on that particular night, an individual, and I found out later his name was Bill Mincer, known as Charles Manson II, came into the house about 11 o'clock. She was on the 3rd floor, it was a tri-level, and heard him coming in. And the dog went bananas. She closed the door, went to the telephone to make a phone call. Didn't work because the phone down in the kitchen had been taken off the hook. And she sat there and waited it out, got her gun out. He didn't come upstairs. Again, I made some phone calls, and I didn't go home that night because when my daughter came back from her road trip, I was staying at her house, and we decided to watch a movie at the last minute. So, divine intervention. Absolutely no question about it. And the other 2 probables I don't need to go into them, but there was a fellow who was hanging around my P.O. box for quite a while, and I'd have to send somebody else in to pick up my mail. This is all New World Order, as I said a few moments ago. This is all what they do. And Kucinich not Kucinich, but I forget the Congressman. Huh? No, there's a congressman from Ohio, that I think it's Kucinich. He has asked for an inquiry into the CIA hit teams that are operating in this country today. Okay, he's asked for an inquiry, but nobody's paying any attention to him. That's just one. I can't tell you how many illegal burglaries, illegal entries I've had into my home. It's like Grand Central Station. They're in and out of there, and it's unbelievable. I took a trip when I was in Nebraska. I was gone for about 3 weeks. I came back, and I had my research, 500 boxes of research over a period of years, stored in the third bedroom. They helped themselves to 200 boxes of my research. Okay? They're in and out of my car on a regular basis. I can, right here in LA, I park down, I remember parking downtown, and I came back, and they do this all the time, turn the direction signal on. I start the car up, the direction signal's on. I had my car stolen twice. I had my brake lines cut. I have had 2 windows shot out when I was standing nearby. They were intimidating me. They weren't real bullets, fortunately. They were air bullets. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to intimidate me. I've been poisoned in Las Vegas. I was poisoned. And what they did there, the only way they could have poisoned me is they had the condominium next to me, and they were pumping poison in through the air ducts. I had my right front tire come off I was driving between Omaha and Lincoln, 60 miles, 75 miles an hour. The right front tire came off. Highway Patrol came, looked at it. It was John DeCamp's pickup truck, by the way. I had gone from Lincoln to Omaha to talk to a source. And the only way they would know that was by tapping John's telephones. And I found out, the highway patrolman looked at it, he says, hey, your lug nuts have been loosened. And they tried to loosen the lug nuts on the left front tire, but somebody must have interrupted them because they weren't successful there. They wanted both tires to come off at the same time. My mail's been opened, diverted, and intercepted. My phone was cut off once. And I called the phone company. I said, hey, you discontinued my phone. Why? And they said, well, we sent you a bill. You didn't pay it. I said, well, where'd you send it? They sent it to a fictitious address in Florida. Never heard of it. I've had mail disappear. People written to me, and I've never received it. Surveillances are almost a daily occurrence. They tried to intimidate me. Look, I was in a gun battle in Memphis, Tennessee at the airport. If they're going to intimidate me, they're not going to intimidate me. I'm not afraid of them. I've dealt with terrorists when I was in the FBI. And I remember when back in about 90 or 91, they put a dirt bag out, just parked across the street, maybe 4 or 5 cars up. And I would see them there, and I'd put on my gun, go out and get in my car, drive by 3 miles an hour, stare them down, do a U-turn, 3 miles an hour, stare them down. Then I'd park in behind them. And they couldn't get out of there fast enough. One of them ran a red light. Then I chased another one and cornered him on the street, blocked him, and I reached under my front seat like I was going for a piece, and his eyes got big as saucers. And I was on a street that went up the hill and down. It was one way. I went up and down and parked at the bottom of the hill. And then he started coming up, and I was watching the rearview mirror. I could see the top of the car. And when he saw me, he stopped and backed up the wrong way in a one-way street. By the way, I've got some pretty good license numbers, a lot of license numbers that I'm saving. My business has been Sabotage, Virginia McCullough. I've had telephone taps. I sued GTE back in the 80s, got an out-of-court settlement. I've had threatening phone calls. I came back from a trip once, and I got up in the morning. I was looking for a file on a desk, and I had a phone call, 827. The voice said, male voice said, "Did you find your file?" Click. They had a hidden camera in my house. I was gassed on the attempted gas on the freeway. They gassed my webmaster, Clarence Malcolm. I've interrupted 2 attempts to steal my car. I've had flat tires. In one instance, I had 3 nails in the same tire. That's a little more than a coincidence, I think. I sleep with a gun under my pillow. I have a combat magnum. And one day, just a couple of years ago, I check it regularly. I checked it and somebody had come in and taken the bullets out of it. So if they came in on me, I was going to have to throw the gun at them, I guess. Cameras, they've taken pictures of me. I've been, my webmaster was hit with uranium-235. I know for a fact I've had a trash cover on me. My computer has been sabotaged. I've been expelled from the Ex-Agent Society. I talked about my plans, the disinformation program, McCullough, Horowitz, and so forth. Those are just the life of a person who dares to take them on. Also, I might mention that in the early 1980s, I had 4 investigations on me. I know because I applied through the Freedom of Information Act. And one of the reports came, they sent me back. It wasn't anything significant, a couple of pages on a report. And they said, in the interest of, quote, national security, we can't give you the full file. But it's kind of interesting because one of the reports at the end said that they consider me armed and dangerous. Okay, well, I am armed and dangerous with knowledge, right? Thanks. Thank you, sir. Pam Fawcett. They put a girl on me, Pam Fawcett. DEA and the FBI. I dealt with her on the phone for 6 months. She was in Modesto. Tried to set me up on a drug deal. And she called me one day and said, "I need to talk to you." She told me that the whole story about how they had tried to set me up through her and drugs through her. And I said, "Pam, why are you coming over to my side now?" I had the names of the FBI agent and the DEA agents who dealt with her. She said, and I was trying to help her on the phone. I tried to help her with her 14-year-old kid. He got in trouble down in Florida. And she said, "I woke up the other morning and I realized you're the only honest son of a bitch I've talked to in 6 months." Those were her exact words. Pam took a polygraph, passed it. And so what do we have? Well, we have the NSA and the FBI. The U.S. government, NSA, has tapped its entire internet system. FBI can hear everything you say, even when cell phones are off. The code word for this program is Quantico. All payphones at Grand Central Station in New York are tapped. The rounding up of 775,000 Americans by the shadow government began on February 24th, 2009. And Brian Gumbel says, "Oh, he's just a conspiracy theorist," right? Well, that's not right. I'm a conspiracy realist. There is a conspiracy. This lecture is dedicated to all the corrupt politicians, bureaucrats who investigate these matters. CIA, FBI, military intelligence. The real, most serious culprits of all are the military intelligence. NSA, they're keeping track of all of our phone calls, of where we are every minute of the day. But I'm just going to say very briefly about the Illuminati, because there will be some people who will watch this lecture on DVD and will not know about the 25 goals: corrupt the youth through sex and drugs, right? Control the press, the mainstream media, elect your own people to office. If you can't elect your own people to office, put your agentures or advisors in, Illuminati advisors, so you can control to a degree the person who represents the people or whatever the situation might be. As I've worked and investigated, that absolutely without any question establishes there is a conspiracy and infiltration into the lower levels of the government all the way to the White House. A wrap, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.